constituents, and thank you so much for joining me for tonight's episode of the Politics as Usual pod. So as you can see, tonight's video is a little bit different. I'm actually here on camera. Hey, y'all. So we're going to talk about a couple things tonight. The first thing I want to talk about is pretty much giving you guys an explanation of why this channel exists, why I created it, and what we're here to do, what I'm here to do. So I'm here to explain to you guys how the U.S. government works. We're going to talk a little bit about current events. We're going to cover the elections. We're currently in the midterm elections this year. And we're going to cover important issues and topics in news. I'm also going to be interviewing different elected officials in the New York City area, and hopefully some federal interviews coming up. Maybe not this season, but definitely later on in the year. Got some things in the works. So I'm based in New York City. So most of the news that we talk about is going to be New York City related news and New York State related news. And most of the officials that we're going to talk about are going to be elected officials from New York State and New York City. And because New York City is the largest municipality, local municipality in the United States, arguably, some might say LA is up there as well, but New York is where it's at. A lot of the things that we talk about can translate to many of the other states and many of the other cities in the United States. So I just would encourage you all, no matter where you're located, to just listen carefully and with open ears and open minds. So I know we are all feeling a wide range of emotions today with the news of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. Real quick, just to put things into context for those who may not fully understand what's going on, the Supreme Court's ruling has basically given the power to allow or not allow abortions to the states. So prior to this ruling, the right to have an abortion was protected by the Constitution, which meant that states could not put a ban on abortion, period. But now they can. And there are 13 states that are set to ban abortion either immediately, within the next 6 weeks, or within the next 30 days. And they are, let me see if I can remember them off top. So we have North and South Dakota, Kentucky, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Tennessee, and of course, Texas. What's troubling for, well, let me just say this. So those of us who do not live in those states, it may feel like, all right, we're good for the time being. But according to Politico, there was an article I read, a statement that was put out from the Supreme Court justices who did not vote to overturn, the ones who voted, the minority who voted to uphold the ruling. And they were saying that the language in today's ruling does not stop the Supreme Court in the future from prohibiting abortion nationwide, which is very troubling and very concerning, because that basically, is a threat to the 10th Amendment, which states that any power not given to the federal government is held to the people or the states, the people, the states, or the local municipalities, but mainly the people. So in the event that, Justice Alito, who started this whole mess, followed by the head coon himself, Clarence Thomas, suppose they wake up one day and want to go ahead and try to overturn abortion and ban abortion nationwide, there's a possibility that that could happen. And that's very troubling. That's very troubling. This is the United States. This is supposed to be a place of liberty, a place of free will, so we're spiraling, or we're heading into a direction that's very scary, very, very troubling. If you ask me, we're moving backwards in time. We were once looked at as this very liberal place, this very, the land of opportunity. But with things like this, it just makes you wonder, like, where are we headed, I do want to tell you guys about the justices that voted. So the vote was a 5-4, a 5-4 ruling. So the 5 justices who voted to overturn were, of course, Clarence Thomas and Judge Alito, who was the one who initially drafted the decision to overturn the case. Judge Alito was. And then there's Judge Gorsuch, I think is how you say it. And then Brent Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. Now, what's important about those last 2 names, Brent Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, those were the 2 judges that Big T appointed, President Trump. Amy Coney Barrett being the last one that he appointed right before he left office or was voted out of office. And if you remember, Brent Kavanaugh was the bull who had all those sex abuse allegations against him. So his nomination, was met with a lot of resistance, and there was a big trial. The woman who had accused him of rape, she went on trial, to try to keep him from being confirmed. But then, they ended up losing the case, and he was, in fact, confirmed. But let me tell y'all a story. So back in 2013, there was a secret meeting. This was back when our beloved President Barack Obama was in office. And he had called a secret meeting with then sitting Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whom we all love and adore. She fought so hard throughout her career for women's rights, the rights of minorities, just across the board. An amazing woman, an amazing scholar, just a beautiful, lovely woman, had a lovely life. In this meeting, he was trying to get her to retire. He was hinting at retirement for her because at that time in 2013, she was 80 years old and had already dealt with 2 bouts of cancer. In that meeting, she basically told him, no, I'm not retiring. My work isn't done. I still have work to do, and you're not going to bully me into retiring. He wasn't trying to bully her into retiring. What the issue is that the following year in 2014 were the midterm elections, and those are the elections where, your senators, pretty much the whole legislative body is up for re-election, and Democrats were in danger of losing the Senate, which they eventually did lose that year. So that would have made it hard, or rather impossible, for him to appoint if they lost and she didn't step down in 2013. So he could appoint someone that was younger and more liberal to serve a lifetime term, because that Supreme Court judges, they serve lifetime terms. But because she said no, he was unable to appoint someone to take her place. And then she later passed away in 2020 when Big T was in office, which gave him the golden ticket to fill that seat. And what's so crazy, just the way that stuff happens, President Trump, I could be wrong on this, but I can't remember in recent history a president ever having the ability to appoint 2 Supreme Court judges, but Trump did. And he only served 1 term. That's incredible. That's unheard of. The last time that a sitting president was able to appoint multiple justices, I believe, was all the way back in 1936 when President Roosevelt was in office. So the way that this worked out is just, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And I want to be clear for all my notorious RBG fans, I'm in no way, shape, or form, putting this on her shoulders. But it's just it's worth noting that Barack Obama had the foresight to see something like this happening and try to stop it, but he couldn't. Hey constituents, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. This episode is sponsored by Ramsey Family Marketplace, a Black-owned grocery store selling healthy and organic products from chefs, artisans, and small businesses owned by people of color. Hit the link in the description box to grab your snacks. Now back to the show. So I guess we'll just, see how things unfold over the next couple of months and weeks. And You know, I'll be here to keep you guys posted. I'll do the legwork, let y'all know what's going on so you don't have to. And yeah, we'll see. But let's get into tonight's episode. Well, more into tonight's episode. The next thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about was to give just a very detailed breakdown of the structure of the United States government. I know with a lot of my videos, I kind of preface it with letting you guys know what branch of government and what level of government we're at when we're talking about specific issues. For example, I'm going to be doing a video next on Mayor Adams' blueprint to address the homelessness and housing crisis in New York. And I always preface these videos by stating we're at the executive branch at the local level. You know, so in order to not have to do that anymore, because I know y'all probably get sick of that part, I want to just go ahead and just create one video that gives you the whole structure breakdown so that you'll understand and hopefully be able to catch on, you know, when we talk about certain issues in the news and in the government. So, and I have a chart. I'm going to throw it in there so you guys can take a look and follow along as I talk. So we know that the government is broken down into 3 levels and 3 branches. The 3 levels, of course, are the federal, which is the president in them, the state level, which is the governor in them, and then the local level, which is the mayor in them. And we have the 3 branches, which is the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. I don't know if y'all can hear the piano in the background. So on the executive side, you can think of those guys as like the CEOs of their respective levels. So that's the Hove and Dame Dash of, you know, government, pretty much. Those guys are the president, who runs the country, the governor, who runs the state, and the mayor, who runs the city, or in counties, they call them county executives. Like Long Island has a county executive. The New York City mayor doesn't control Long Island. They have their own county executive. These guys pretty much oversee all of the moving parts of their jurisdictions through what we call agencies on a local level, state departments on the state level, or cabinets on the federal level. And for each agency, department, or cabinet, there is its equivalency on every level. So for instance, take the Agency of Housing and Urban Development, that's HUD. I know y'all have heard of HUD. We know that there's a HUD on the local level, which is the city. There's a HUD on the state level, and then there's a HUD on the federal level. Y'all remember it was this whole big thing because Big T had appointed Dr. Ben Carson, to oversee HUD and on the federal level for his cabinet. And everybody was like, what do you know about the housing? And what do you know about the housing department in general? Like, you've never worked there, you're a doctor. And his answer was, well, I lived in the projects. So, Lord, crazy times. But just to make a point that there's a HUD on every single level. And another example, let's take the office of the state comptroller, where I'm currently stationed in New York State. We know that there's a local NYC comptroller's office, and we know that there's a comptroller on the federal level. The comptroller's office, are the people on the state level, oversee the pensions of the city, and the pensions, and then they also make sure that when the state's budget is passed, that the funds are allocated to the correct departments and that they're used correctly. So that's pretty much the auditing department of government. Pretty much the comptroller's office on all levels. And then we also have some other examples include the Department of Education, Department of Sanitation, the Office of Management and Budget, where I also worked, was an intern at the Office of Management and Budget, OMB for short, on the city level, and was part of Mayor Adams' transition team, which is why I get so sensitive when y'all be talking and coming for my mayor. Hey bookworms, did you know that this channel also features a monthly book club? Hit the link in the description box to like, follow, and subscribe. Now back to the show. So let's move on to the legislative branch. So the legislative branch as a whole is called Congress. These are the lawmakers. These are the people that you contact as a constituent when you have issues or concerns and you want to get a certain item added to the congressional agenda on your local and state level, of course. So on a local level, there is one body of Congress, and it's called your city council members, city council. On a state and a federal level, we have what is called a bicameral system, which means two houses. So on a state level, you have your state senators and your General Assembly members. And on a federal level, you have the U.S. senators and the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives. So these are the people who write laws, introduce new laws, and who pass the budget. So as far as the budget is concerned, the executive branch proposes the budget. They draft the budget plan, but Congress, which is the legislative branch, they have to approve the budget before anything can move, before any funds get dispersed, before anything goes. It has to be approved by Congress. That's why you'll see the state and federal government shut down like we did when Big T was in office, when he was trying to get that border wall included into the federal budget for the year. And Nancy and them, who run the House, was like, nah. And then I think it was Mitch McConnell, is that? Yeah, Mitch, who was the head of the Senate, who was run by Republicans, was like, yeah, we need to get that included. And then they were at this big standstill, this big like face off for weeks, which was, I think, the longest in history that the government had ever shut down, until they were able to come to an agreement, and they essentially took the border wall out of the budget, and everything was able to pass, and the government was able to reopen. But I say all that to say that nothing can happen without Congress's approval. Congress moves the culture, essentially. That's what that means. And this is called checks and balances. This is the whole idea of checks and balances, so that all of the power is not centralized in one branch. For instance, the president. Let me just say this. It is important that we take the elections very seriously, especially this year, because what can happen is that one party, let's say the Republicans, can gain control of both the House and the Senate. And then we could also have a Republican president in office. That's a recipe for disaster. This can essentially diminish the whole practice of checks and balances in a way, because you have a president and then both bicameral levels of Congress voting the same way. Now, that's not to say that in the event that that did happen, that there aren't ways to get around that. There's things called like the filibuster that would allow them to prolong the voting and the passage of controversial bills. But who wants to be in that position? Just get out there and vote. Make sure that, the Republicans don't win both the House and the Senate, because we'll be in for disaster pretty much. And I do want to say this for all of those skeptics out here who may be viewing this. We know smart people do realize that the government is not for us, period. When you look at the government, it's like one eagle with two different wings, but the same body. They all have the same plan. Nancy is friendly with Mitch behind closed doors. Let's not pretend that that's not a thing. But what's important is that you do pick a party, because where change happens is on your state and your local level. And those people are broken down into Democrat and Republican. So if you want to see real change, it's important that you vote. I know we have a lot of people that choose cognizant dissonance and choose to just separate themselves altogether from the voting process. But when it comes to your state and local levels, you have to vote. You have to vote, because those people run your everyday lives. They make the rules and the laws that affect you every single day. So it's important. I just wanted to, get that out the way. Now that I've gotten my PSA out the way, let's talk about the last branch of government, which is the judicial branch. So the judicial branch is basically the courts. This is the court system. And the courts are also broken down into three 3 sections, the power of 3. Y'all keep that in mind. I'll talk about that in another episode. So we have the district courts, we have the Court of Appeals or the appellate court, and then you have the Supreme Court. And on each level of government, local, state, and federal, they have all of 3 of these levels of courts present. Take the highest court in the country, which we just talked about, which is the Supreme Court. We have the United States Supreme Court. We have, in our case, the New York State Supreme Court, and then you have the New York City Supreme Court. So this is important. Why, you ask? Say your homie gets locked up for gun possession and you need to come see about him, right? Don't go down to that district court jail because aggravated criminal gun possession is a federal offense. So that friend is being held in federal jail in the city, not the district jail. You understand? Because there is a federal court in each city, just like there is a district court in each city locally. So depending on the level of the crime, that depends on where you go. Now, I trust that many of my viewers will not have that problem, but just in case we got some shooters watching or some people who know some shooters, this is the case. So this is why it is important to understand how the court system works. That is, all of the branches of government are very, very important, but legislative and judicial are 2 of the most important. They're 2 of the most important, period. You need to know how the court systems work, and you need to know how law is passed, and you need to know what's going on the legislative side, you know? So there you have it. This is the complete breakdown of the U.S. governmental structure. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button, like the video, and leave me a comment. And also, please turn on your notification button so that you will be notified every time I upload and you won't miss any of the videos. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. Thank you all for watching, and I love you. Good night.